What's up, everyone?
What's going on?
Hi.
How's everybody today?
How's everyone doing? Welcome to another day of daily gaming news.
We are here to bring you the latest going on in the gaming industry and also to give you our take on the facts of the matter, as everybody loves a good opinion, right?
Yeah, and we've got some spicy stories, especially right at the top, as Microsoft will ban Forza players who add the Confederate flag to their digital cars.
So, if you play Forza Horizon or Forza Motorsport, you have some freedom to personalize cars in-game, even adding your own custom designs. One popular example, players have used the feature to recreate the General Lee, which is the 1969 Dodge Charger from the Dukes of Hazzard, in almost every single Forza game since at least 2007. But the General Lee famously includes the controversial Confederate flag on its back, and Microsoft has just announced it will ban players who use that symbol, among others, in the game.
In a statement posted on Twitter last Friday, Microsoft updated its enforcement guidelines to have a zero-tolerance policy for any player using the Confederate flag or other symbols that represent notorious iconography, including Nazi imagery and the rising sun, which can be a symbol of Japanese imperialism. Microsoft will not automatically ban players that create designs with these controversial images. Instead, the original designer will need to be reported by submitting a ticket.
Now, some players have noticed the ban. It hasn't sparked a significant backlash yet. Besides, if you want to turn your 1969 Dodge Charger into a General Lee, you don't actually need the flag to do that. Even the real-life General Lee car owner no longer wears a Confederate flag, and that is pro golfer Bubba Watson says that he had it removed in 2015.
Well, some players have noticed the ban. It hasn't sparked that backlash, which I'm glad, because it shouldn't spark any backlash.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused with this article as of like, yeah, that's a good thing. That's normal that people aren't upset that the Confederate flag is being removed. It reminds me of this general, I don't want to say trend, because I don't want to consider it a trend, but about some games, getting into these hard-hitting issues, such as Warzone putting up its Black Lives Matter, kind of a banner at the beginning of a game.
Yeah, it's a good point there. It's this shouldn't be surprising. I think with everything that's taken place, we understand what the Confederate flag was a symbol for. Mm-hmm. And when you are educated on the historical accuracy of that symbol, it makes sense that this is the way in which we would approach this for anyone who would continue to use that symbol, especially in a space like an online video game where other people can see that and be offended by that.
Right, and I'm surprised that this kind of implies that maybe Nazi imagery in this game was allowed, or I guess maybe they didn't really have a stance on it prior to this. I'm not sure if it was, always the case, but that does make sense that, you shouldn't have hate symbols, being allowed in these games. And I understand how there's that risk when you allow players to customize anything, such as like in Animal Crossing, people have designed t-shirts and they, generally use those to do like 100 Thieves stuff or like something nice and cute versus like taking advantage of it to, like spread hate in the world. I'm very glad that action was taken on this.
Yeah, and there was a time period, I think, back in like Call of Duty, when they allowed you to do like a custom symbol, and you could add layers and make it all yours. And it was within maybe like 2 days of this feature being around that I saw swastikas, some form of offensive imagery. And a lot of the times I was wondering, like, are the people putting this up there knowing what they're doing, or are they just trying to troll? You know what I mean? Is this an actual, white nationalist Nazi, supporter, or is this someone trolling? And for me, no matter what, whether your intent is either or, it doesn't matter. You should be addressed and held accountable for using something that is offensive and harmful to those who were under this persecution.
Definitely, and I think a lot of trolling, well, my personal opinion is that a lot of trolling on the internet starts as a joke or as just like a troll, and people say to girl gamers on voice comms like, oh, go back to the kitchen, as a joke. But in doing so, they're actually engaging in the sexism. They think that they're so far above, and they really are just the people themselves perpetuating the problem. And I think that it's also been able to pass as a joke because no serious consequences have, ever really come from this. This reminds me of recently, or I guess a few months ago on Twitter, there were a lot of, like high schoolers posting racist TikToks. And then that would be reported to the universities that, they were going to go to next year. And they were like, how could this happen? My whole life has been torn from me. I just made a joke. And it's like, what is a joke to you, like, really affects other people's livelihoods?
Yeah, I was just trying to look when that was, because it was right around the same time that, a lot of buildup was obviously happening in this space prior to COVID, which of course increases the pain and suffering for people in a universal way. And then now you are seeing people who are like, look, I don't need to suffer as a human being to a virus right now that we all are faced by, and continue to suffer to prejudice and racism that I think we all should be able to universally agree shouldn't exist, and no one should be going through this.
Right. I hope that this also will extend into other games too, addressing usernames, because usernames have been out of hand for a while now. At least on Twitch, I've kind of noticed that it's actually gotten a little bit better. I seldom get racist usernames, at least as much, but it used to be, a fairly common occurrence not even that long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And just like updates to that to really, enforce that this is behavior that shouldn't be allowed, which I have been saying for years, but I think only now, especially with this backlash, companies are starting to really wake up and see that, this is going to affect their bottom line eventually.
Yeah. And, there was a few weeks ago, I had posted this Martin Luther King quote that was basically that we will remember the silence of our friends. And, that's something that in this space, remaining silent is only going to perpetuate the problem, because those who are suffering will be like, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you standing up for this and addressing this? So good for them that they're saying, look, you're going to have the freedom to create your own custom imagery. That also does not mean you are free from consequences if you create imagery that is offensive, and we will ban you. So it's a wonderful life lesson there of where freedom allows you, and where also there is a potential of judgment upon your choices.
That's very true. Another game which has some judgment bestowed on it by gamers is an Amazon shooter called Crucible that actually went back into beta after a rocky launch.
Hey, thanks for all the glasses love, everybody. My eyes were tired from contacts yesterday, and I see all those messages in there, so thank you so much. I think when Amazon shooter Crucible first came out, we were all like, ooh, what's Amazon doing here?
What are they doing?
I guess the initial reception is not so great, as Amazon's owned game studio, Relentless, is putting its free-to-play shooter Crucible back into a closed beta state after admitting it launched the game before it was ready. In a blog post published Tuesday, franchise lead Colin Johansson says that the focus is now on providing the best possible experience for our players, as well as continuing to make the game better, and so that the game can, revert back to a pre-release state, because it needs to give the studio space to make the changes and plan a more robust launch.
Johansson writes, we'll continue following the roadmap we laid out previously and working on map, combat, and system changes to improve the Heart of the Hive's experience, as well as implementing other improvements based on your feedback and what we think the game needs in order to thrive.
By the way, I love No Nonsense is a Ninja's comment. I've never heard of a game going back into beta. Right? I love it. Yeah.
I don't know if I have either.
Yeah, because this move is rather stunning admission of failure surrounding Crucible's launch back in May. The title, which combines elements of a mobile online battle arena, as we know, MOBA, with the hero shooter genre, it arrived with little fanfare, and amid the highly competitive PC free-to-play market, it includes numerous battle royale titles, Riot's popular new tactical shooter Valorant, and dominant existing sports like League of Legends and Overwatch just didn't really put it up against a tiny bit of competition.
While Crucible brought some genuine innovations to the table, the game's lack of overall originality and its lackluster characters, combat, and art style made it largely forgettable. It also suffered from a bit of an identity crisis by trying to be a bit of everything at once: a hero shooter, a battle royale, and MOBA. Last month, Relentless ditched the game's more peripheral battle royale and team deathmatch modes to focus solely on the game's MOBA-inspired Heart of the Hives mode. Yet, that didn't seem to give the studio enough time to fix core issues and make the game more attractive to new players. And as someone who plays battle royales and MOBAs, and I do enjoy shooters, I like to play them all separately. So I think that they were trying to do something new with this, similar to how maybe Valorant was trying to be Overwatch and CSGO, kind of. They were trying to be like that hybrid of that fusion of that. Maybe they were trying to be a fusion as well, but it ended up just not really, because it was trying to be so many things, it ended up not really being anything in and of itself. Yeah,
that's a really hard competition to go up against, because you never want to be that situation where it's a jack of all trades and a master of none within gaming specifically. Because Relentless says it's now going to take time out of every week to play with the community and solicit feedback. Johansson goes on to explain, we're setting up a community council made up of beta participants of all playstyles, from casual to highly competitive players, and they'll be working closely with them, and they'll have more information on that council as well as our weekly play schedule soon.
For those that have Crucible already downloaded, which I actually have it downloaded, but I've never opened it up, Relentless says the game will still function as normal and can be launched from Steam without needing to download anything. Players will also retain Battle Pass progress and cosmetic items they may have earned or purchased, and the in-game store is staying open. But for those who want to play and haven't downloaded the game, you have until 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, which I guess is done. So I guess you won't be able to download it if you haven't already. You might not be missing out on much before it officially enters the invite-only closed beta phase. Sometime in the future, interested players will be able to sign up for access through the game's website.
And, hey, what's up, Rixie? Johansson also writes, look, we're going to be putting out updates, working with organizations to run tournaments, talking with you on Discord, subreddit, and our other social media channels, and making Crucible better and better with your help. When we exit beta, it will be based on your feedback and the metrics that we see in-game. Relentless is also encouraging players to continue sharing screenshots and clips, encouraging friends to play, and talking about the game openly on social media, like Beats saying it should have went back to pre-alpha, to be honest.
Honestly, looking at the gameplay footage, it looks good. Maybe it's just very fancy on the outside, but the actual gameplay itself isn't that compelling, because it looks very clean to me.
Yeah, that's a thing too, is like I see the game in action and I'm like, okay, I could dig this. But then if the surface is just, the shallow end, and you're looking for the ocean, it makes sense that they're kind of like, oh yeah, maybe there wasn't enough here in the first place. And also, how do you feel about them shifting their focus on the MOBA?
I thought that was, I guess, kind of a strange move, maybe. I think MOBAs are, as popular as ever, especially with, Pokemon Unite, which is a Pokemon MOBA coming out. So maybe they thought that because Dota 2 and League of Legends are so popular, they could be a MOBA as well. But in this style, Heroes of the Storm, Smite already kind of has that covered in the way that it's like a third-person MOBA. So it's kind of like, well, is this game going to be better than Smite? If I want to play MOBA like this, I might as well just play Smite. I thought it was like an interesting move that maybe sounded good in a boardroom, but not in action to players.
Yeah, this is also something that we have to take into account. This is, Amazon's first venture into gaming and focusing on gaming. So we're going to see some hiccups along the way. They do have some IPs that we've talked about that I don't want to see fail, especially the Lord of the Rings MMO that they have coming out. So I like the choice, like, Ninja was saying, when has this ever happened before? I can't recall. I like the choice of going back, saying, hey, we need to really, find the actual foundation that will make this game benefit over a long period of time. And in doing so, we have to admit our failures.
I thought it was honorable that they're pulling this back into beta. I think that is a huge admittance of an opportunity for improvement versus necessarily a failure. But I know a lot of gamers were watching Amazon very closely because there's a lot of doubt that they can do well in the gaming space, and seeing this game go back into beta, I hope that means they're going to try to make things right before they attempt that Lord of the Rings game, which is going to be a monster, and if that ends poorly, that is a lot of money down the drain.
Yeah, and just as a fan of the IP in general, if that game fails, I will be rather upset. You know, Beats saying you've played it. I didn't play this game. I think that was one of the things I noticed. I had apprehension right away and was immediately like, I don't know about this. But to hear that it's like very plain, it's kind of like what you were just saying. It's like it's really flashy visuals, but then just the true essence of the game in and of itself was just too simple and not enough there to really want to like stick around with and keep playing. And
that's a point that I mentioned a few weeks ago on our show where especially with next gen and the ability to create stunning graphics, like at this point in time, graphics aren't going to carry your game. I don't know if maybe they ever have, but especially now, I think having a flashy trailer, having everything look exciting might like garner a lot of interest. But ultimately, when people play the game, no matter how good it looks, if the story isn't there, if the gameplay isn't there, if it's not challenging, if it's not exciting, if it's not different from what's already out there, it's not going to be a success.
You just posed a good question, and I'm curious if anybody in the chat can think of one, and maybe if you could take a moment and think of one as well, Kaisa, was there a game that the graphics were good enough for you to stick it through, but everything else about it just was not good?
I didn't play this game, but I heard that about Crysis, that it was like basically a tech demo, and no one actually played the game because the game wasn't that interesting, but they just used it to show off their PC specs.
That's true. Yeah, Crysis would be the experience that you're like, man, this game is beautiful. It is just
not that fun.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'm curious how many of those there could be. Ooh, Beat says Final Fantasy 15. Interesting. Yeah.
Do you have one? I'm still thinking of others.
Crysis is actually a really good one to address because I never ran Crysis. I did know one individual who had a PC that could run Crysis, and I was like, oh, wow, this game's really, really pretty. But I didn't spend enough time around it to take away the common viewpoint that it was like, yeah, there wasn't anything there. The Avatar movie?
Yeah! That's a good way to... The Avatar movie, they like touted the like motion capture was so revolutionary, but the story was, pretty, copy paste.
I mean, it was Fern Gully. It was, it was there was another film that other people were saying that it was similar to. There wasn't much of a story there. That's very true.
And right now, or at least in like the next month or so, I'm trying to play games that I've never played that I want to because of the story. Such as last night I got back into Fable, which graphics are nothing to compare to
great story.
But great story, and like 2 hours in, I've totally forgotten about the graphics, and I think my mind just like fills in the blanks with my own imagination of like what it should look like or what it does look like in my mind. Like Fable, Resident Evil 4, I feel like there's just so many older games that I want to play. I've never finished BioShock. I have to finish BioShock.
Wow.
But compared to now, the graphics can't compete at all, but they're still, they're still special, and they're still so renowned in gaming because of other things.
Very true. Tricep says that the Avatar game as well. I didn't know there was an Avatar game, but if it came out and was super flashy and just super bad, I wouldn't be surprised.
I know, right?
Look, when you're making the game like the movie, we got to stick to the formula, okay? It's got to look good, but just basically be empty on the inside.
A game coming out soon that hopefully will be a knock out of the park is a new game from the Life is Strange creators as they aim for something more grounded with a psychological thriller called Twin Mirror.
And I will commend these individuals for telling a good story.
Yes. So
French game studio Don't Nod. Is it Don't Nod?
I think it's just Don't Nod?
If it's Don't Nod,
sure.
I wanted to add the French flair as much as possible to it. Yeah, do
French.
it. Don't Nod. All right, sorry. So they love the supernatural, as we can see if you've watched or played Life is Strange. The team's breakout hit was the original Life is Strange. That game started teenage girl who had the ability to rewind time. And the sequel featured a young boy with telekinetic powers. In 2018, the studio dabbled in role-playing games with Vampire, which I loved a lot.
I like that game.
It put players in the role of a bloodthirsty denizen of the night. But around 2016, the team decided they wanted to create something a little more grounded.
They eventually landed on the idea for Twin Mirror, an adventure game about a former investigative journalist named Sam, who ventures back to his hometown following the death of his best friend. Naturally, he gets wrapped up in a much bigger mystery involving the entire town. Sounds very similar to Life is Strange, of how there's this mystery of the whole town, also very much like Vampire with the investigative journalist, because you're kind of a detective the whole time. Sam does have some video game-esque abilities, including a mind palace for piecing together clues and solving mysteries, but there are no superpowers or mythological creatures.
So the game's director went on to say, you want people to be able to understand the mystery. Yes, there are some supernatural elements in how we display Sam's unique mind, but the story itself, the logic of what's happening, and the motivation of the characters, all of it is rooted in reality.
While the team knew from the beginning that they wanted a more grounded story, it took time to figure out what that story would be. The issue, according to the game director, was that just because a story is interesting, that doesn't mean it offers interesting ways to interact with it. What made Sam and his quest to uncover the secrets of his hometown compelling is that it struck a balance between those two factors. The team loved the character and mystery, but they were also excited about creating ways for players to inhabit Sam's investigative mind. We were quite convinced that we found the right mix between those two aspects, said the game director.
So, much like Life is Strange, Twin Mirror plays out as a third-person adventure game, one where players interact with the world, but also make critical choices that can influence how the story plays out. A key difference is tone. Because it's billed as a psychological thriller, the team at Don't Nod wanted to ensure that Twin Mirror felt intense. So, it originally planned that it was going to release Twin Mirror as a series of episodes, much like Life is Strange.
What's up, Adros in the chat?
Hey, what's up, Adros?
However, around 2018, the team did some major reworking of the game based on playtesting, which included restructuring it into a single non-episodic experience and pushing back the release date. They had all of the right elements, but things just weren't coming together. They weren't gelling. So trying to split it into pieces, sometimes it was breaking down the rhythm, said Don't Nod's head of publishing, Xavier Spinat. The process involved some extensive rewrites of the story to make it flow as a seamless whole, as well as restructuring the logic of some of the choices.
Twin Mirror takes place in a small town in West Virginia, which is becoming something of a theme for Don't Nod. The French developers seem particularly enamored with Americana. The first Life is Strange took place in a picturesque Arcadia Bay, a fictional town in Oregon, while its sequel was a desperate road trip that spanned from Washington to Mexico. The upcoming Tell Me Why, meanwhile, is set in Alaska. And they went on to say this, or Spinat went on to say this, as a thriller, we were looking for something with some character. And as of a West Virginia setting, we also wanted a place that wasn't a big city.
The new game is slated to launch later this year and is coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC, where it will be an Epic Game Store exclusive for 1 year. Twin Mirror has been in development for several years, and as is the case with most games at the moment, that process has slowed recently due to the ongoing pandemic. Don't Nod's production is a particularly international one. It's a French studio working with a Japanese publisher that has testers in Romania, motion capture work done in Germany, actors in Poland, and voice recordings done in the US. Managing all of that has been tricky, but the team says production is still going strong.
Spinat says this, we have still managed to move forward, but much more slowly than we'd like. And hats off to them for still being able to chug along right now.
I know, it must be so difficult. And now that we've talked a lot about what Twin Mirror is, let's take a look at the trailer.
Yeah.
Peggy 16.
After a short break, mental health expert Dr. Winnicott will discuss the recent
bed don't weigh the same.
Basswood is many things.
You really do have this infatuation with this
Peaceful
kind of
tops
setting.
that list.
They do.
Check my clothes and walk.
Until that day. You're the one in the driver's seat, Sam. I can't make you do anything. Coming back to Basswood was your idea. Just try and make sure you don't do anything stupid. I know you think that the only thing waiting for you down there is hurt. You might be right.
Another car crash.
Good news, though.
I'm seeing
At least
themes in Don't Nodsburg.
you don't have to do it alone.
Yes. I wonder if the car accident will maybe trigger something in his brain or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited because I've seen just good storytelling out of this studio, and I think after a while we've consumed so many stories, especially with the amount of media that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You begin to trust the storytellers that you've had good experiences with in the past, just like a chef who prepares food that you're like, I'll eat from that person's
no matter what,
kitchen
it's
again, no
food.
matter what. Yeah, it's the same kind of feeling going on now.
I was a huge fan of the first Life is Strange. I didn't like the prequel as much. I didn't like the sequel as much either. Vampire, I think I liked overall, but there were some aspects of the story where I just kind of got like really lost, and I was like, I think maybe they confused themselves with some of the options, or some of the choices didn't really like seem to make much sense to me. But overall, still would play that game again. I really liked the adventures of Captain Adventure. There was that like Life is Strange spin-off game.
That's right.
I'm sure
I never
people in the
played that.
chat know. Oh, Captain Spirit, The Adventures of Captain Spirit. But all of these stories were, as Floral Meg says, like very like emotional, very dark. I feel like they start off being like, oh, we live in a nice town, and then suddenly it all just like goes very far downhill.
It does.
So I'm surprised to hear that this game is coming out later this year, I believe, especially since I haven't, heard much from it or seen much from it so far.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of this studio, and I'm looking forward to this.
They might be the kind of developers that they're like, hey, we don't want to show you a game until it's borderline ready. You know what I mean? And that is something like I would love to get used to and be happy with if more studios did that. I see, Ubigosh was asking some questions on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is one of those games that with the Microsoft event coming up that we'll see more about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But it's, again, one of those moments of like, you see a game too early on, you get so hyped for it, there's a possibility of delays, Cyberpunk, and you just are wondering, what's going to go on, how's it going to be? Just show me, show me a game when it's ready or is close to being ready for me to get my hands on.
That's how I feel about a lot of Bethesda's games right now, where Elder Scrolls 6, they were like, Elder Scrolls 6, and everyone's like, okay, but when? But when? Because it seemed more like an official announcement versus just like, hey, we're making one, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's
all yes, you're so right. They're just out there going, hey, we got this game in the works, and you're like, cool, can you tell us when? What?
Right?
Elder Scrolls 6.
Orpheus says, I hope Valhalla won't be so repetitive as Odyssey. So they are making Valhalla actually a shorter game or a more condensed game. Not by much, but that you won't have those same repetitive elements. That was part of why Odyssey was so long to finish. I'm personally a fan of a better game in a shorter amount of time. Doki Doki Literature Club is one of my favorite games, and it's not that big a game. It's not that complicated. And I think if a good story can be told in a certain amount of time, it shouldn't be expanded just for the sake of more content.
That's actually a great point on the repetition is what are they going to do with this game that doesn't make it feel like the other real-time event story-based games? What's the new feature? How expansive is this mind aspect that they're doing, the pyramid inside his mind to put clues together? It's got to be strong. Otherwise, it could be one of those situations where it's like, yeah, it's good, but it feels like the same. They don't really like do anything else different. So I hope that they don't one-trick pony themselves with stories like this.
I felt like they were kind of doing that with the Life is Strange series of, there were some points in the game that were just so kind of like enjoying the moment of being outside, that I was like, is this whole game enjoying the moment? Like, I'm kind of here for the story and like the murder mystery part and like the thriller part, or there were, you know, maybe it was trying to be more slice of life or some themes that they really wanted to hit home, but it did feel kind of dragged out to an extent, and I did feel myself playing through some episodes being like, I'm just playing through this episode to get to the next one, like I'm not really invested in what's happening right now in the game, which is you know, sad to say. I don't want to, you know, trash on any of these games at all, but I do think that some of the storytelling could be, I guess, better honed in, so it's not just, you know, making the game longer.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited to see some gameplay when they show it, because I'd love to see the game in action, know which kind of, like, is it going to feel more like Vampire with these types of elements, or is it going to be more like Life is Strange? So I'm curious. I'm hopeful. But the next story is one that is really interesting, and I think of no surprise, as Discord is ditching its gaming branding in a bid to become more of a general purpose chat app.
Online text and voice chat application Discord originally launched with the sole focus on video games and the people who play them. It even took a shot at its own digital storefront and game subscription service. But today, Discord announced, or yesterday, it announced that it's aiming to become a more general purpose communications platform.
So this is what the CEO, Jason Citron, has said, is we designed Discord for talking. There's no endless scrolling, no news feed, no tracking likes, no algorithms that decide what you should see. We designed Discord to enable the experience and feelings that we wanted to recreate, being together with your community and friends.
As you've used Discord for more and more than playing games, our branding didn't keep up, and the way we talked about ourselves sent the wrong signal to the world, making it harder for you to bring your broader community on Discord. And we know that the first few interactions someone has with our service could be intimidating because Discord is complex with many features.
So to cut back on the complexity, Discord says it has streamlined the new user onboarding experience and added new server templates to help simplify the process of setting up new servers. Bugs have been fixed, voice and video capacity have been increased, reliability and performance remains Discord's top priority, and a recently launched safety center is in place to make users aware of rules and tools available to deal with unwelcomed interactions.
There are also some more obviously front-facing changes. The Discord website has changed. DiscordApp.com is out, Discord.com is in. And so has the tagline, which is now, quote, your place to talk. Gaming now rates all of 2 mentions on the front page, neither of them prominent, and the jokes and references within the software have been made less specific to gaming to make sure that everyone can take part in the fun and make Discord more welcoming.
Discord's expanded ambitions make sense given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which has pushed conferencing software like Zoom, as Beats has said, they want that Zoom money, to the forefront of mainstream consciousness. It also has prompted Discord to increase its streaming viewer limit in March from 10 to 50 to accommodate increased demand.
And as you can see on your screen, this is part of Discord's new messaging, where it's just like general fun and communications. This still looks like it's from a gaming convention, but they're trying to become, more mainstream. They want people to use Discord, instead of using Zoom. Right now, we're using Zoom, which, I have my reservations on as a company, to support them as a company. But Discord's current state of video chat and voice, I feel like the voice drops out a lot. I think with video, it's hard to have a static video on my screen and be able to, make sure that's going to stay there. If you're inactive, it signs you out to save space on their servers, which I understand, but from a production standpoint, it's just more of a headache. So I think that they're making steps to get there, but I don't know if they're going to be able to really become the new Zoom. That's
a good point. I don't know how many times I've had issues with the video chat when I've attempted it, and the voice chat will cut in and out. It happens. If they can correct those problems, I think they are definitely in the right place at the right time and pushing themselves more as a general chat app. It makes more sense, because I've had people who I'm like, hey, we can chat on Discord, and they're like, what is that? And I'm like, that's a voice chatting software that mainly we use when we're gaming online, like PC gaming. And they were like, oh, well, I'm not a gamer. And I was like, and even my initial response to that was, well, you don't have to be a gamer to use the software, but it's like, that immediate just, oh, I'm not going to download it because I'm not a gamer, this really does make sense business-wise.
I think Discord is maybe too cool right now to bring into the mainstream. Sorry to doubt you, Discord. I think they can do it, but I think they're going to have to make a lot more changes because it does look really sleek. There are all these different features. I feel like I still don't know how to properly, change all the settings in my Discord. And when new people come into my Discord, especially people that are new to Discord itself, they're just like very confused generally. They're like, what's a server? What's a channel? What's the difference? What are all these permissions? How come when I have a setting, it's not just like checkmark or X, it's checkmark X and then like a slash in between? They're like, what does that mean? Rixie says it's like Slack for Zoomers pretty much, except that some Zoomers don't even know how to use it. And it's not, I don't think it's very user friendly. I think it's got a good foundation there of what it can do and how you can have, a huge chat room and, you can section it off. So certain people have, specific permissions to access certain channels or certain servers. But I think that more changes might have to be made to the interface. I am sad, but I'm sad to see some of their messaging go away in favor of more mainstream messaging, because on their Twitter they would be like, ooh, like Discord is down for a minute, senpai, and like according to gamers, like they find it like a meme and funny, but like if you're trying to show that to your boss, they're gonna be like, what are you doing?
What is this? What are they talking about?
Right.
Yeah. Is this a spell? What's happening? Yeah. It's a really good point. And it is something to be said, is like, there are a lot of gamers. There's still a lot of people who don't use the service. Mm-hmm. I think if they came up with kind of like a Discord Lite or a type of, a layout that was more simplified. So it was like very like I click to join, I'm in the chat, and it didn't like feel kind of like daunting, as you were saying. Mm-hmm. That will really help them. But outside of that, it's kind of like, well, I have Google Hangouts and I have Skype, and I have Zoom. Why would I use Discord right now? Mm-hmm. So they've got to prove themselves to a more general place. Otherwise, I hope they don't offend the wrong people. Their initial core.
Right, of becoming, less about gamers, you mean, and offending the base they already have. I super agree with your point of a Discord Lite. I think would, solve all the problems I pretty much brought up, to make it more like Slack, to make it more like Zoom, where there aren't that many buttons to press. It's you click to join, you click on your microphone, you click on your video, like that's it. That should be, I feel like once it comes to that point, it will be the place for people to talk. But until then, with, certain friend invites and the numbers in addition, and it's hard to find where to add friends and where to call people and how to call people. Those are all issues that do need to be addressed first.
Yeah. So if they could figure out a way to allow someone, if you like the more advanced version and you're used to it, you can use it. But if you're a Zoomer or before, you need a little bit more hand holding. We'll give you this version as well. That would probably iron out a lot of the initial I'm resistant to using this app.
I love how Meg says even WhatsApp has better video and voice. I mean, FaceTime is pretty good. Skype is still pretty good, even though people call me a boomer for using Skype. I'm like, but it works and I don't have to pay anything. Yep. So I don't understand why I shouldn't use it. Google Hangouts as well, I don't really use. But I, have been on it and it was fine. All of these platforms are pretty similar. At this point, I feel like I've used Zoom so much because it's what everyone else uses. And they're like, oh, I'm hosting a meeting, it's on Zoom. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll be using Zoom then. And it's kind of, that because every company is using Zoom, maybe we should be using Zoom too. I'm also convinced that like the reason Zoom has gotten so popular is because they probably like pitch themselves to a lot of companies to become the like de facto voice chat there. So Discord will really have to, do something different if they want to like fight in this game of voice and video chatting. Yeah, and it makes me wonder too, is like, as we see how successful that Zoom is, and they're doing things that are very strong in their pursuit of maintaining their software and getting more people involved. What are some of the good things that we think that Discord is doing? Not just gaming specific, but just in general, that we're like, if people understood how to use this software,
they would actually like these features.
This is, I guess, not super relevant, but I guess people just like Discord as a company. Like, I've had friends that have gone to the Discord booths at conventions and like bought Discord jackets, and it's cool. And like, no one's gonna buy a Zoom jacket. No one's gonna buy a Skype jacket. Like, it's literally laughable. But to buy a Discord jacket is like a cool thing to do as a gamer. I think they've done a good job with branding. I also think listening to the community, from what I've seen, you know, they post a lot of updates in Discord and on their social media. They're pretty plugged into what's happening, and they do feel like the kind of company that also uses their product a lot, and they really know it in and out.
Yeah, that's true. It does have its own place in the culture that isn't just, oh, I have this on my phone, but I'm willing to represent it on my body or out and about. So yeah, that's true. And that the booths, you see all those people that are there? So
it's packed.
Yeah, you know, they should be, and I hope they are, maybe getting out some surveys, getting out some questionnaires to these people who are frequently using them, to maybe some of the owners and moderators of really big Discord channels. That they just try to get some general feedback of like, hey, what do you guys think that we could do as we're pursuing this direction? And that could be great, because right now community feedback with this situation would probably make the community feel more included in the choice, and less like, hey, we've been so thankful for you, gaming community, but we want this bigger pie. And then it's kind of like, but that looks greedy.
Right, as Funspec did, will Wumpus die? The mascot, Wumpus? Yeah, if Wumpus dies, I think a lot of gamers are going to be sad about that. It looks like it's still their logo, but maybe they're just not really going to be engaging as much with it to try to be less fun and maybe more corporate. Who knows? But I feel like I'm going to be watching closely to see if Discord does, happen to, pivot successfully, or if it will still be, known as, the place for gamers.
Yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye and see what's happening. But our next story is an interesting one. As I got a chance to dabble a little bit last night.
So our next story is the latest Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone update adds a new sniper rifle and nerfs the Grau.
So, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Season 4 Reloaded patch is available to download. It adds support for up to 200 players in Warzone in a quad-specific match. And it has a new weapon. It has a map and an operator. It is a 36 gig update, which also introduces several weapon adjustments, including nerfs to the Grau, buffs to the snipers across the board.
The Grau 5.56 has been a staple of the Warzone meta for months now, with countless players adopting the lightweight and powerful weapon as a solid alternative to the M4A1 and M13. Although it appears that the unrivaled mobility and range that previously accommodated a number of Grau builds has finally led Infinity Ward to curb its powers. And the Grau is so, predominant that some people were even calling Warzone Grauzone, because it was just 200 people all with Graus.
Yes, I took part in Grauzone, I will admit it, because it is usually praised for its potency at longer distances and low recoil. And I mean, it is so true that you could just sit there, the gun would barely move, and you could hit someone from like 200 meters away and take them out. It was just a little ridiculous, but you were like, I got it, so I'm going to use it. And you would use the FSS 28 barrel or also the Tempest 26.4 Archangel barrel, and though it won't feel as responsive as before, they've suffered a blow to recoil compensation, which was necessary. While adjusting to the increased recoil will take some time to get used to, it doesn't sound as though the weapon is worth dropping entirely. These changes may encourage players to freshen up their loadouts and take the Kilo 141 or the FAL for the spin, but I doubt that this is the last time we'll actually see the Grau 5.56. If anything, the nerfs to the no-stock attachment that now add additional recoil and decreased aiming steadiness will have actually a greater effect on the meta.
If sitting on a roof and patiently picking off unsuspecting opponents is your game plan, you'll be happy to hear that sniper rifles have been tweaked for the better. The HDR was already a beginner-friendly sniper, but it now guarantees a one-hit shot to the lower torso at any range. Really? That seems a little overpowered. I don't really play Warzone, but that sounds like a lot. So yeah. The AX-50 benefits from increased damage range, and the Dragunov welcomes a boost to both its fire rate and ADS speed.
I gotta agree with Orpheus there. The size of these updates and the game itself, there's aspects of the game that seem to be changing. Not only did they add and remove quads original for the 200-person quad, which is chaotic. And honestly, I think it's hot garbage. I'll say that right now. I tweeted that earlier. They need to toss it out very quickly. You've already got to deal with respawns. You've already got to deal with the gulag, and now all these people on the map. It's just an unnecessary choice. Maybe if they had it as a classics mode where you had 200 people on the map, and if you die, it's a permanent thing,
right,
I would be more into it. But at this point, I'm just kind of like, are you trolling us, Infinity Ward? What is this? And they made changes to the gulag, which are just, I don't know who's making these choices. They're giving you like single shot rifles, the crossbow, knives. Like the changes in the gulag are just now more of the like, I hate this. Like I don't enjoy being here. I don't feel like I'm actually going to walk away from this. Anybody I've talked to recently who are consistent players of it are like, I might stop playing this.
Really? How has season 4 been as a whole?
Hey, thanks, Kane.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. As a whole, I've enjoyed some of the new additions, but they've made a shift in this kind of like this arcadey focus of a BR with the supply choppers and the fire sale and the jailbreak, and they have these features that people are like, guys, just put me on a map where it's skill versus skill, and it's not all these like extra options that can benefit you to win.
It's so, I guess, interesting for me to hear because I think that people like Warzone because it's so arcadey, but I think once you get good enough at it, it takes away all the fun. There's like a short bliss point of like skill, versus fun in the game, and it seems like it's skewed more towards the fun side, which is good, but also if you are a hardcore diehard player of the game, there's only so much you can play before it gets uninteresting.
Yeah, and there's a healthy variety with the buying feature, and I'm okay with it the way it was at 150. I wish they they did mention in a post recently, which was like they're going to eventually be releasing a realism option, so like you can permanently turn on realism and turn it off. If that feature jumps in, I would be more inclined to that, especially with the sniper rifle upgrade, because I have been getting really focused on sniping more, and sometimes I'm like, I've hit this person like 3 times with a shot. Like they should easily be down by now.
Right.
So I think this kind of makes sense with the update on the sniper rifles.
I see. I hope that the game becomes at least somewhat balanced, maybe in the future, or at least they can kind of figure out how to tweak these weapons to both be fun and still keep the community happy.
Yeah, it's necessary. I have seen more anger-filled comments as of late with Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Warzone than I saw maybe in Season 3, which seemed people were like really excited, loved playing Warzone, enjoyed talking about Warzone. And now it's kind of in and of itself becoming, unfortunately, a meme.
A little bit of a meme. Nerd says, you snipe a run and gun. What's up, Dark?
Yeah, I love it. What's up, Dark? Yeah, that's right.
That's sad to hear that there isn't as much excitement coming out of it. I hope, everyone was really, psyched about the new map, about like the nuke warhead that they found, and we still haven't seen anything come from that yet. Maybe that'll be coming soon. I hope that's not going to be something that's just going to be like a year from now of like, oh, right, this big thing everyone's been waiting for a long time now. We finally have an update for you. And I'm curious as to what their next epic-like event will be. The Fortnite-like event.
I want to see that as well. Actually, Kane, the snipers got buffed. So now they are a one-shot below the torso, whereas before you could you'd hit people multiple times. So, for me, there are just some fundamental changes that need to happen as a battle royale for Warzone to take off. Otherwise, what I see them unintentionally doing is pushing people to Treyarch's Cold War when it drops, because I think people will hope that the features from Blackout will translate over to this new one, and they'll use a lot of the good from Warzone and just combine it with what they did well with Blackout and have the better battle royale choice.
Right. I believe it was Treyarch that was talking to more pro players or community members to see what they really wanted from, from a battle royale or from their game. And they're, they are listening to the higher tier players who probably won't want that much of an arcadey feel. And once their mode comes out, like, who knows if that's going to be actually the more popular one, if that's going to be the one to dominate after seeing all the good things that Warzone has done and all the mistakes that it has made for them to fix in the future.
Yeah, my hope is that this BR 200 person battle royale lasts as long as VR Classic Trios did. Like 3 days from now, July 4th, Independence Day, get it out of there. Get it out of there. Just take it.
200 people?
Take it, throw it in the Xbox Series X looking garbage can.
With Respawn too, right? How long are the games? Like an hour and a half?
It's no joke. I was like 15 minutes later, I was like, there's still 140 people on this map. I mean, we're talking that, and I hope not. I hope there are none of the jailbreak options, because if there at all
jailbreak
for that 200 person,
200 people,
and then you go in the gulag and you're like, I've got a crossbow. The person's like, I'm not going to use the crossbow. I'm going to come up and melee you. And now you're like, now we're meleeing with crossbows. What's happening? I liked the gulag the way it was. Why do you keep doing this to me?
The gulag was fun.
Yeah.
It sounds like they are like trolling the players, or they do want it to be like a meme, because there's no way you can put a crossbow in a 1v1 in the gulag as like a serious way to play. It has to be a meme. It's a meme.
Yeah, I think each time I've seen the crossbow or like the single shot rifles or just anything that you're like, I'm just gonna bum rush this person, and I don't really care about this. I'm gonna just go with the melee choice. I think a friend of mine told me they were like, I got into a gulag and I had a knife. And I was just like, why would you? What is this? What are you doing? Why are you guys doing this?
Yeah. That's just like having a crossbow or, a long range weapon reminds me of Valorant. If I ever have the sniper and someone's close up and I accidentally like zoom in and I'm like, what do I do with these crosshairs? Like, this person's too close, please. I feel like I would just, try to go at it with the knife as well, and
I think I've been there. Just
take my chances.
Yeah. Oh man, come on, Infinity Ward. Hear your community. Make these changes. Stop doing this to us.
So this might be our last story of the day. Is the PS5 variable frequency is very versatile, and Tempest will be a game changer.
So Microsoft and Sony have laid their cards on the table when it comes to their next-gen consoles, the Xbox Series X and PS5 respectively. While the former sports an octa-core Zen 2 CPU clocked at 3.8 gigahertz, which can run at 3.6 gigahertz. The latter uses the same CPU, but at a 3.5 gigahertz at a variable frequency. While the hardware needs to be extensively tested across numerous games, we've wondered, what are developers' thoughts on the differences?
CBE Software's Jan Cavan, who developed the first-person adventure thriller Someday You'll Return, said it, quote, really depends on what kind of game you make. In Someday You'll Return, she was able to have at peak moments of 10 milliseconds per frame at obsolete i7 CPU, while most of the time the game ran at 4 to 6 milliseconds per frame for CPU bound. But the variable frequency is a neat idea if it works properly, because it's very versatile.
So Sony has also spoke a lot about the 3D audio, the Tempest audio engine, in conjunction with the DualSense's haptic feedback and variable triggers, and its meaning to aid in one's immersion. So Cavan says that it will be a game changer, but it will also depend on the consumer side of audio. For me, it's personally the reason I want to work with the PlayStation 5. It would certainly be interesting, if not downright terrifying, to see how horror games will utilize this technology.
I am really looking forward to the Tempest 3D audio and how that will affect games that have a lot of rain or storms, or I think a lot of audio cues, especially in games where you have to be stealthy. If you make a noise, like, you're going to hear it and your attacker is going to hear it. It's one of the most exciting things for me about the PS5, honestly.
Yeah, it has me kind of like just sitting here and going, what is it that is going to happen? If it is a moment of like a horror game where I'm inside the house and maybe the killer is outside the house and I can hear the footsteps of the gravel, and maybe I knock something and it creates a sound, and then you hear the stop of the footsteps because it is now aware of a sound inside the house. You know, moments like that you've seen in films, and they haven't necessarily been able to translate into games. They're saying, oh, we're now going to be able to do this. And then you think about the haptic feedback. It's like, are there moments of struggle? Are there moments of some sort of tension happening where you're feeling the kickback on the controller and the immersion is there even more, where you're like, yeah, I felt like I was literally fighting for my life. There was a sense there of even the touch with the controller that made me have this fear.
I hope they're going to release a sort of maybe like audio track if you have special headphones, that you'll be able to, you know, test out some of this for yourself, because for right now, all we've gotten, especially of a lot of these PS5 specs, this is from Mark Cerny's presentation about the PS5, and this isn't about the Tempest audio itself, but most of the presentation is like this, where it's very technical. It's talking about the custom flash controller and the system memory and the DMAC, and, you know, and how that fits with the decompression and the SRAM, and I'm like, this looks super cool. I have no idea what's happening with the Tempest audio. I think they were talking about how, you know, their technology fits with it. It looks very cool. I have no idea what's happening. Unfortunately, I am merely a consumer, and I think I won't really be able to truly understand, you know, how the Tempest audio operates or what the end result is until I can hear, you know, more audio clips for myself.
Yeah, and there was a thing that they attempted to do to break down into layman's terms of being able to understand the raindrops on a metallic surface versus the raindrops outside on the dirt. Like, you'll be able to distinguish those differences. And the same going for a driving game, where if one tire is, you know, on the road and one tire is off-road, you'll be hearing both balanced exactly the same way, while also with the DualSense controller feeling the difference of one side being on smooth and the other not. So they have, like you said, they have a lot of like technical information there that isn't really fully understandable until we are experiencing it ourselves. But just the idea and creative kind of like thinking on what that could mean is really exciting. PlayStation 5.
I love how Kai read that as Karen decompression on the PS5. PS5's getting into that fight. Yes, about how all the audio will be so different. I wonder if that creates a fun challenge for Foley artists to come up with all of these sounds. If it makes it just a lot more complicated to produce all of that, to record all of those sounds, or if similarly to how next gen consoles can handle graphics very well, maybe there's a way that it can kind of automate some of those processes to make it easier on developers.
That would be really cool. And if we start to hear devs come out and say that, I mean, that even more just pushes the interest that I have on Sony's side of the next gen conversation. Because if you're telling me that we could get a game where the sound experience is like A Quiet Place, you know, I'm there. I don't want to be there, but I'm there because I need to experience it.
Oh, they should make A Quiet Place the game.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like so much. I haven't seen that movie yet, but I heard that it was a nightmare to see in theaters because you couldn't even eat your popcorn because everyone was just like, I can't make a sound.
Yeah, you would hear people eating their popcorn. That was the thing. Like opening up a candy wrapper, you were like, well, I'm gonna just the moment of just trying to open up packaging in any way in that, or a cough. It was like somebody's literally 20 rows back and they've coughed. You're hearing it. You're like, how are you right here?
That reminds me of when at the end, I don't know if you've seen Contagion, the movie about a pandemic, but right at the end, when everyone's like freaked out, they're like, there's going to be a pandemic that happens. It's going to be, so tough to manage as we are living in right now. But at the end, I just for some reason started choking like on my Sprite, and I was like coughing like really intensely and like really hard. And I was stressing other people out because it was just too much and it was like too on point with what was happening. So the immersion that I hope to see in the PlayStation 5, I have high expectations on, what kind of experience it'll bring me.
It'll be great. And actually, we're going to be ending here on that, but that something just as for tomorrow, the conversation that we're going to be jumping into is one talking about the Unreal 5 tech demo, which did take place with a PlayStation 5. They had mentioned that tech demo was only as GPU intensive as Fortnite.
I was so shocked to hear that because the graphics were out of this world, and it was only as intensive as Fortnite? Really?
So tune in with us tomorrow as we dive more in on this, because there's much more to unravel to this. But yes, that is where we are at with next-gen technology. Phil Spencer was right. Like, the next gen is the jump from 2D to 3D. We're not prepared for it, but we're excited for it.
So we are going to dive into that tomorrow, as our show starts every weekday at 1 p.m. and goes until 2 p.m. Pacific time. But that does bring us to the end of our show. So thank you so much for joining us. If you missed any of this, you can check this out on YouTube. Anyone watching on YouTube, you can catch us live on Twitch at twitch.tv/dailygamingnews_.
Thank you so much for being here. We enjoy everyone joining in on the chat, throwing in your comments, helping feed us thoughts and anything that is just engaging. We appreciate you all and all of your support as we continue to do this. Thank you guys so much for being here. For Daily Gaming News, I am Marrone.
I am Kaisa. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you tomorrow.